Hi, everybody. Welcome to First Church of Religious Science here in New York City. Welcome to our Louise class, our special gathering here on Zoom. And I want to welcome all of you on Facebook, YouTube, X. I want to welcome you however you find us. And when you find us, be sure to send us a shout, as many of you do. If you include your email, your phone number, your name, you'll be able to receive our weekly email, which will include spiritual gems, invitations, affirmative prayers, and you'll be able to maintain contact with us. We get all your messages. We've responded to a lot of people the past few weeks, offering prayers, and behind the scenes, Jimmy does a lot of work, and I do, and Judith, there's people available if you're it's the time where you need to talk to somebody. I'd also like to remind everyone to please go to our YouTube page, where there's many dozens and dozens of prayers and classes. Same thing for Facebook, and you can listen to these 24 hours a day. A lot of our lessons are really worth listening to 2 or 3 times. So I invite you to go there. If you need information, you can see in the chat room. It's always posted 2 or 3 times in every broadcast. I'd like to welcome you to the Thursday evening gathering that Jimmy facilitates, and he has guest speakers like Lady V from time to time. That's our Creative Living series that's offered at 7 p.m. The Louise class, which you're a part of right now, is every Thursday at 7. It's the same Zoom link. And then every Sunday morning at 10:45 a.m., we have our Sunday lesson, our Sunday gathering. So now we're going to get into tonight's lesson. And tonight's lesson is a little bit of it's a test for me more than anybody else. I'll probably tell you about it later. But without further ado, let's get into this. Louise Hay's teachings resonate with everybody now. Many years after she wrote the book, You Can Heal Your Life, which was in the early 80s. They resonate with everyone. They guide us. They embody the spirit of transformation that we all cherish. So I'm thrilled to present it. I've been presenting, I think, a weekly class, mostly every week since the book came out. I think I took a few weeks off here and there, but this has been a consistent weekly thing for me for many years. It never gets old for me because I can see how it helps people. Louise Hay said the bottom line for everyone is they don't feel adequate. They don't feel good enough. And see, we have a lot of old ideas and old tapes that we've been, considering and that have been playing in our minds for many years. And what she's wanting us to do is the same thing religious science wants you to do, is to realize that you have power. That you're supplied and supported. Ernest Holmes, who was the founder, Louise Hay's inspiration, said there's power for good in the universe. And he went on to say, greater than you, and you can use it. So as you learn about self-healing, the first thing to understand is that you live, move, and have your being in this energy, and it's an energy that responds to us. It's through the law of cause and effect. Louise Hay would say, what I put out comes back to me. As within, so without. So there's no such thing as an idle thought. She would say every thought you think is creating your future. When I was younger, and I used to be a good Catholic boy, so many years ago, I can't count them, but I was always praying, taught to pray. And I encountered a religious science practitioner after I had been at Unity for a few years, who said to me, Greg, the universe so adores you that it responds to your every single thought. It doesn't miss a single one. And that's the great news and the good news of learning to love yourself. You learn that as you learn to love yourself, your life improves. Louise Hay would say, I love, accept, and approve of myself exactly as I am. And she would say, never criticize yourself. And that's a problem for many of us because we've grown up with a lot of criticism. We've been criticized and we've learned to criticize others. And how is that working out for any of us? Wherever I compare myself to another and I've come up short, I'm criticizing myself. Or wherever I feel that I'm better than someone else, then I'm being critical of them. So we want to release the need to think that way. A lot of it is our own programming, the stuff that we got as kids. And so Louise will tell us, to say to ourselves, I love, accept, and approve of myself exactly as I am. And as you know, regarding other people, she was a big advocate of forgiving other people. And you've heard me say before, she would say over and over again that everyone is doing the best that they can with the information, the understanding, and the awareness that they have. So if everyone's doing the best they can, then what about all my opinions about everybody doing the wrong thing? Louise would say we should take the word should, what everybody should be doing, and throw that stuff all in the garbage can. And she said, throw the word should in the garbage can also, because she thought it was one of the most damaging words in the English language. Because wherever we're using it, somehow we're making ourselves wrong or we're making someone else wrong. We're saying whatever is not okay. And so the thing about what she was really getting at is the underpinning of metaphysics and New Thought. In the New Thought movement, we know that we live, we move, we have our being in this spiritual activity. Think about that. I live, I move, and I have my being in this spiritual activity, this energy. Some of you call it God, some of you call it good. But you live in it, you move in it, you have your being in it. And here's the thing to remember, it responds to you. Each of you, all of us, myself included, are individualizations of this activity, this spiritual activity. And we wake up in this teaching, we go, oh my goodness, I'm alive and I'm awake in it, and it responds to me. So that's a great discovery. That's something that people haven't known through antiquity, because everybody was looking for this source activity, this God above in the heavens, or they'd look up to the east star, or they'd look to it in the spring. They would look, through the equinoxes. They would, have ceremonies to celebrate it, and everything that they were looking for throughout antiquity was external to themselves. So I remember encountering this idea probably around 1980. And it was Reverend Bill Cameron, who was a Unity minister. And he said, Jesus has been celebrated for over 2,000 years every Christmas time. And he said, but the great idea is, that Christ idea where you realize that this energy, this love, this power, this good, this God is in you, operating through you. So he's always encouraging everybody every Christmas time to, when you're thinking of the birth of Christ, he says, this is a time for us to wake up and realize that this very same thing that was in Christ Jesus is alive in every single one of us. But we don't realize it. We don't live as though we have that power. We don't live as though we are one with that kind of love. So I go to so many different places. Ralph Waldo Emerson, would be one of my influences. Where, we're each individualizations of this. We are points of awareness within the mind of God. The whole universe is here responding to you and working through you. So you're the vessel for where it all happens. And Louise Hay would ask, well, how are you approaching the ocean of life? What are you carrying? Are you carrying a thimble? Or in my case, I have a water glass. It's probably 8 or 10 ounces. Are you carrying a glass? Are you carrying what are you approaching the ocean of life with? Because whatever your level of receptivity to good is what you'll get. If you're approaching the ocean of life like, oh, I only deserve a little, and I've been very bad, and you don't know how bad it's been, and you don't know that. If you're approaching the ocean of life as a complainer, oh, poor me, and my life is awful, and I don't have this, and I don't have that. It's very difficult then for the universe to say, I've got a small, like a small cup, and it can only give you then whatever you can receive. You learn in this teaching that, you are one with the one, which means you're the heir to all. You're like, it's the story of the prodigal child, that you're born in the kingdom and you're the heir to everything good. I mean, everything. And yet we forget. And all of us do that to a degree. We go into our, it's like we're sleepwalking. You go through our days and we forget. You are the queen, the queen or the prince or the princess of the realm. It's all there for you. Another metaphor, the kingdom of good is at hand. If you were studying the Course in Miracles, they would say, miracles are natural. If we're awake and alive and realizing who we are, then life is responding to us, right? Miracles are natural. And when you're not experiencing them, it goes on in that book saying something's gone wrong. So when my whole life is working against me, it's not that God is against me. It really boils down to that I'm against me. I'll say that again. My whole life is working against me, or seems to be rather, because it never really is. I'm working against myself. I'm doing something in consciousness that's tripping myself up, or I'm holding on to old ideas that are getting in my way. Emerson would say we have to get our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. That's such a beautiful line. So he's saying, okay, our whole thing, you're one with the one. You're all about divine circuitry. You exist as, you're one with Source. You're one with this love. You have power within you that you can't even understand. Power for good in your Holmes again. There's power for good in the universe greater than you, of which you're a part, and you just forget it. We're asleep. So and then we have all these opinions, and we're critical, and we're we have old tapes that have been going around for 20 years, 30 years more, and we have all these strong opinions, and it's really unfortunate in a way because they get in the way. If you could push that stuff out of the way and reprogramming yourself and say, look, I'm good and I'm good. I love, accept, approve of myself. I'm supplied and supported in every way. And if you could get yourself to a point where you believe it, that's what he's talking about, Emerson. Get that bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. We have a lot of bloated nothingness, strong opinions, resentments, ancient grievances, the Course in Miracles would say. From Don Miguel Ruiz in the Four Agreements, he'll talk about smoke and mirrors. So you exist as light. In your whole life, if you get rid of all the smoke, you'll be reflecting the light of God in your life everywhere. The smoke in the Four Agreements is just these old beliefs, these resentments, these grudges, these strong opinions, and all of that. I'm reminded of a couple of people who were in our group who recently been talking, let it begin with me. And that's exactly right, because that's the only place it can. For you, it can only begin with you. See, a lot of people are, I have one friend who's waiting on the Lord. He's in another country. And I would always say to him, look, you've got to start doing something yourself. And he says, what do you mean? I said, it's incumbent upon you to change your thinking if you want to change your life. I said, I have nothing against what you're saying, waiting on the Lord. But I'm saying, it's incumbent upon you to change your thinking if you want to change your life. I remember from the 12-step programs 43 years ago, they taught me willingness is the key that opens the door. Willingness to think differently. If you look at your life and you see some area of your life that's not working, then it starts with you. Louise Hay would say we're each 100% responsible for all of our experiences. So look to your life, and every Thursday we ask, what's it been like being you? So look to your life and what's it been like being you this week? Because my consciousness, my thoughts, my thinking, my accumulated thinking is creating my life experience. Nobody's going to save me. This teaching might save me if I apply it. The whole thing about religious science and working with Louise Hay, when Louise says we're each 100% responsible for our lives, so she's really strongly advocating that we change our thinking. She's never making us wrong or bad for where we are. In fact, you'll hear me say in many of these classes, never, never, never criticize yourself. Wherever you are by right of divine right action, meaning you're in the perfect place, perfect time, all the time. So never, never, never criticize yourself for being where you are. But learn to take a pause. We're talking a lot lately about taking a pause. Find a way for you to become mindful. Take a time out, several times a day if you can. Take a time out and take a pause and remember in those moments. Breathe in. I had an exercise for you, so I don't have it with me. Breathe in and take a moment. Let's say you're having a day that's terrible. Envision yourself going to a quiet place, a corner of a room, a bathroom somewhere, and close your eyes if you can during those kinds of moments. And take a couple of deep breaths and say to yourself, all is well. I am supplied and supported. And breathe that reality in and exhale. Breathe it in. I'm supplied and supported. Just for a minute or two. Let's have a shift in consciousness, and you can do this whenever you want during the day, several times, many times, somewhere, just for a moment or two, where you can just calm yourself down, take that pause and say, all is well. I am supplied and supported. I release the need to believe this other stuff. And breathe in, I'm supplied and supported. Everything's in divine order. And then you might think something that comes to mind that you're really grateful for. It could be anything, just that you have the awareness to take this pause even. And breathe it in. I'm supplied and supported. All of this stuff is God in my life, and I'm not going to personalize any of it. And I'm grateful for whatever I'm grateful for. And then I'm going to release this idea, and I'm going to go right back into that room or wherever I am. And something, just that minute, probably 2 minutes, if you have 3, take 3, can make a huge difference. It's like a big reset button. Throughout my life, I've learned to take these resets. I've been using these techniques for many years. I remember working in restaurants and stuff where I was very much younger, and they're chaotic jobs and stuff. And I'd be affirming, this is God in my life, through and through and through. Even when people were being, I'll say, disgusting or really tough environments, which we find ourselves in different times in our life, I'd be saying, this is God in my life, because I always wanted to remind myself of who I am and that everything's in divine order. These are types of things people do in these classes because we're learning to love ourselves. We're learning also to take care of ourselves. Louise Hay would say, when you really love yourself, everything starts to change. Well, when you love yourself, you start saying no, or you put up boundaries. You start to say to people, no, not now. You realize that you're here to move forward, and some people are not going to move forward with you. But the thing we develop here is a certain sense of equanimity where we know we're okay. We become somewhat unflappable. There can be people all through your days that are acting in certain ways, and maybe they're trying to get your attention, and maybe they're trying to do all kinds of things. But what does that really have to do with you? I did another talk recently, speaking of an early time in therapy, where this lady Joyce used to always give me a card, and the question on it was, whose problem is it? And it was very, very helpful for me to understand that whatever is presenting itself isn't a problem to me unless I react to it. Everybody is moving along in life, doing the best they can with what they understand, myself included. And Louise Hay would say there's always more to understand. So we're all learning and growing. We're spiritual beings. We're having a human experience, and none of us are perfect in the sense that we're doing everything perfectly. But we are all doing the best we can with what we know at any moment in time. And so when you see another person, rather than judge him or her, do your best to have the consciousness to know that this is a divine being doing the best they can with what they know. And it's not your problem. You're not here to fix it all. That's the essence of codependency. When I was younger, I was trained to be a good little codependent kid, meaning I was smart and I was one of the older kids and helped take care of everybody. But what we're doing in this class in particular is we're gaining some insight that we're learning to love ourselves first. We're learning to love, accept, and approve of ourselves. We're learning to change the conversation to one that's much more self-loving. We're learning to be more loving. We're learning not to have expectations of other people. I've said in a recent talk, I'm thinking of a friend of mine who's always upset. And I'm quoting Raymond Charles Barker. Raymond Charles Barker. People don't behave. They haven't and they won't. And the sooner we get to understand that, the happier we're going to be. So we all want to manage our expectations. Our responsibility for our own self-happiness is just that. It's our responsibility. I learned quite a number of years ago, people don't make me happy. I make myself happy. I've also recently spoken of it in a Silmar I was at, where this lady Candace did a skit where she just showed throughout her skit how she was giving her power away all through the skit. And then the second act or the third act of the skit, you see her go through this same series where she takes her power back. She takes her power back. So please don't be one of these folks who are just looking for people to approve of yourself, approve of you, and looking to over here and over there for that, because it doesn't work that way. All healing, Louise Hay said, is self-healing. So it's about the dialogue you're having with the most important person in the world. And the thing is, a lot of it's unconscious because you were raised in families, and I was too, and you're taught a whole bunch of stuff. And some of it could have been very good at the time when you were children. It could have been to protect you, and it could have been your parents' fears to, they want you to be safe, they want you to prosper, they want you to succeed. But here you are 40 years later or something like that, and a lot of that stuff doesn't make any sense anymore. Maybe it's the time to take a chance. Maybe it's the time to spend some money. Maybe it's the time to invest in yourself. Because you might have been taught money doesn't grow on trees. There's not enough, there's not enough, there's not enough. Everybody's got some programming from their family. And all of that really ought to be up for reconsideration. That's one of the beauties of learning to be here now, to be in new moments where you can take a pause. If I ever write a book, it'll be on being in a new moment, because it'll talk about the point of power always being in a new moment. Unfortunately, most of us drag our past hurts, the ancient grievances. The Course in Miracles talks about we drag so much stuff, so we don't really have a present moment. And the thing is, we carry so much hurt in places where we haven't forgiven ourselves or we haven't forgiven other people. The real sad thing about that is you're not able really to be present in the present. And so much, because you're carrying your hurt and your anger and your resentments. And there's beautiful things in the present, but you miss out on them because there's a worry about the future. There's a worry about this afternoon. There's a worry about the kids. There's a worry about, some of you are worried about politics and the end of the world. And, if you carry too much with you, how are you going to be there to see the smiles, to see the beauty that's around the corner? You'll miss out on the interaction right around the corner because your mind will be fogged out with the things you're worried about. So be still now. Be here now. That book fascinated me by Ram Dass years ago. It was just like a big book with lots of illustrations, but it had a wonderful central theme. Be here now. Another idea which is very similar is be still and know that you are God. You see, that could be revolutionary for some of you, but it's no longer revolutionary for me because I understand that I'm one with the One. And I hope some of you are learning that you are one with the One also. And so you can be still and know that you are that. Know that you are an individualization of that energy. Whatever it is, you are as well. It lives in you, it moves in you, it has its being in you. I mean, you're the whole bit, as Barker would say. But, some of us play really small, try to get humble and all that. And you're not really here to be all that humble. You are here to learn and grow. And sometimes there's some very painful lessons because there's things that we've done or that we do or they're in our lives that are no fun. And we have to find a way to let go of them. Oftentimes we have to find a way to rethink the situation. We have within us an internal guidance system that's wonderful. We call it spirit, but there's always that which is within you that will guide you. Emerson, I think, would suggest it's wooing you. It comes to you in your dreams, it comes to you in your aha moments. It'll be always available to you if you take that pause, if you find the times in your days to take the time out for the pause that will refresh you. Try that little exercise I spoke of this evening, which is basically taking a minute or two. Could be in a closet, it could be in a bathroom. It doesn't take long to recenter yourself and let yourself know everything is in divine order, that you're supplied and supported. Think about something that you're truly grateful for. And just take that moment to regroup. And then you go right back into that room and that situation. You'll be in an entirely different perspective. And you won't be reactive because you'll know that you're one with the one, you're supplied and supported. Louise has got many, many, many suggestions, points of her philosophy that will heal your life. You can heal your life. You're really the only person who can. For those of you who don't know, she was like our most famous student at First Church. First Church has had a lot of well-known students. Really, people went out to do a lot of good spiritual work in the world. She happened to be probably the most famous of all. The book, You Can Heal Your Life, became an international bestseller, selling, who knows, 65 million copies, more. And we believe 100 million people read the book. So Louise did more for New Thought than just about anybody that we can think of. So we're all grateful. And she had her start right here in our church here at First Church. So we're all grateful. And I found her when I was living in Florida because I had a close friend who was very sick. And then I wound up taking over the facilitation of that group. And then I started teaching it wherever anybody would want to hear it. So You Can Heal Your Life. This information certainly changed mine. And the points of her philosophy, just a few that I want to mention. I think I already covered this one. She said, we're each responsible for all of our life experiences. So again, if I'm looking at life from the vantage point of what's wrong, if I'm always seeing who's wrong, what's wrong, and who's at fault, then I'm employing this thing called fault finding. And I learned from attitudinal healing, which is another course and set of classwork I have for you, that if I keep on looking at the world through the eyes of, if I'm a fault finder, I will find a lot of fault. And then I get to be right. I can talk about everything that's wrong with the world. But that's really not the approach. That's not the positive approach that Louise Hay was talking about. Louise Hay was encouraging us to take the affirmative approach, the positive approach in life. And that's essentially what religious science is about. We're here to see the good. You hear me fondly talking about Edwina Gaines often. She's a prosperity teacher. And she's always saying, we're here to see the God and the good and the God. And she would use those words interchangeably. And that helped me along the way because as we're learning to practice this teaching, take this metaphysical approach, the positive approach that Louise was talking about, we're here to see the good. That's what we're here to do. We're not here to criticize people. We're not here to find fault. That doesn't mean we're ignorant of what people do. It doesn't mean we're ignorant of anything. It just means we choose to be a lifter. We choose to lift ourselves out of all of that. Because you could live your life that way. And you could be right. You could make a list all day long of everything that's terrible in the world and everything. And then again, whose problem will it be? It becomes yours. I've come to realize, I think I realized it by the time I was 30, that this was a time in my life where somebody very close to me was dying and said to me, this is not a dress rehearsal, by the way, Greg. And I understood exactly what was being communicated to me. is like, this is your own precious, wonderful, valuable life. And it's actually kind of brief. And if we're all caught up in anger and worry and, confusion, and we're just caught up in a mess and drama all the time, we will miss out on those beautiful new moments that I'm talking about. You won't see the smiles, you won't hear the laughter, you won't see the beauty in nature. You'll miss out on so much of it. And Bill Wilson from AA used to say, misery is optional. And then Ernest Holmes, our founder of Science of Mind, would say, suffering is not God ordained. So I had to think about that for a few years. So misery is created to a large extent by ourselves, and suffering too. If I have a lot of expectations, I want everything to be a certain way, then I'm in for trouble. Our teaching teaches us to develop positive expectancy. That doesn't mean that so if I'm going to develop positive expectancy, it means I'm going to be knowing that, everything's working out for the best. I'm going to see the good in people. And I'm developing this within myself, this way of viewing. I'm putting on a new pair of glasses where I see everything's working out for the good, where I know I am supplied and supported. And as a result of this way of seeing and believing, that life has a tendency to replicate the way I'm viewing life. Sometimes I contrast this point in different classes by pulling out the nursery character, Chicken Little. And I don't know whether it was a male or female, it doesn't matter. But what it was doing was always saying, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. If I'm a person that's always caught up in what I'm worried about, and I'm in the future of what's happening in the world or happening here in my community, and if I'm always about what's wrong, I'm going to be creating a world that will reflect, that the sky is falling. Well, it will be falling for me. So if you're lucky enough to find your way into a new thought group like this, or a Louise Hay group, we understand that we have the power to turn all of it around. But it does require a little bit of something. People don't like the word work. That's the work we do. I've been in some really wonderful spiritual groups, long-standing groups in my life. And I remember a teacher in Florida. She was always asking people, are you willing to do the work? The work. We didn't like that word, but what she was asking us to do was to take responsibility for our own thinking. And I remember questions that used to get my attention. She would say to people in the class, what are you creating this person to be? See, that was something new for me. And what are you creating this situation to be? See, I would have in the old days said, well, this person is doing this. And I would have been very judgmental. Or I'm saying, describe a situation from my point of view. The thing is, everything was coming from my point of view. And so she was attempting to have us all learn that we create our own reality. And as you come into a class like this, as we begin to learn to love ourselves, we realize we don't have to be a part of every argument. We don't have to make people wrong. We're here to love ourselves and take care of ourselves. We can create boundaries, we'll love ourselves. And, maybe we're continually letting things to happen that are not good for us. You're not going to change anyone else, but you will hopefully learn to take care of yourself. You love yourself enough to say to other people, I need this time for me. We can talk later. You get strong enough in loving yourself that you create healthy boundaries for yourself. It isn't about them. So we want to really redirect our thinking and realize our life is about us. When Louise would say we're each 100% responsible for our own experiences, she's getting at that type of stuff. She's getting at the type of thing when I was talking about this lady Candace at the Asilomar, who was showing how she gave her power away in a play, a skit she was doing. And then she went through the second part of the play, or the third part, taking the power back. So we're learning to love ourselves enough to take our power back, to realize, as I said earlier, you've got this incredible power within you. And it was Emerson who said, get all that bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. So imagine yourself as being full of divine circuitry and lights, and you just have all the intelligence and love and everything in the world. And what this teaching allows you to do is get all the stuff out of the way of that divine circuitry so you can live the life that you were meant to live. You can express yourself fully. You can find out who you've come here to be, and you can begin to do things that will bring yourself joy. You can let go of resentment, criticism, guilt. It'll improve your health, and it will allow you to see these beautiful moments. It will restore the now to you. What I was going to be speaking of tonight was the restoration of the now. People aren't experiencing the joy in the present as much as they could, or some people not at all, because they're in the future, they're in the past, they're judging themselves, and they're just, woe is me and ain't it awful, and I wish I had done this differently. So they live there, or they're projecting it in the future, and they can't have a new moment if they're doing that. So I'm inviting everybody tonight to reconsider this and find the ways within themselves to create a pause, a little more meditation perhaps, just doing the things that can cause you to reconnect with yourself, art and journaling. All of these things are wonderful, being in nature. But in your day-to-day living, when things are like really, they seem to be spinning out of control, maybe taking those moments. When I was much younger, I remember people saying, I go to the bathroom in my job and I just take time out. So I'm talking about something similar tonight, finding the time to do that a few times a day, especially when you find that you're being reactive or you're unhappy. And you might find that little time can do wonders for you. We call it the pause that refreshes. Louise said, self-acceptance and self-approval are the keys to all positive changes. So we really want to work on loving yourself. Whenever you find yourself being critical of yourself, stop. Whenever you find yourself being critical of anyone else, stop. And say to yourself, I release the need to do this, and replace it. And do it with some passion. And know for yourself, I'm one with the very power that created me. That power is in me, operating through me all the time. So this is tonight's lesson. My little test for myself is this really wonderful lesson I had created for you today, lost in cyberspace. So it's my pleasure to try to do this thing last minute, and it's been kind of fun for me. So this is the time of the class where we turn the microphone and the cameras over to each of you, where you get to share what it's been like being you, where you can talk about your demonstrations, your manifestations, and also where you can call out for the support that you need and know that we're here for you, one and all. That would mean Jimmy, myself, Reverend Judith, and a number of other people too. So that's it. I'll see you on the other side of the break. Thank you.